July 28th, water sewer meeting. We starting at 5:42, a little later than scheduled. I'll ask everybody in the virtual meeting to mute their phones. I hear some feedback. I don't know if it's our end or their end, but everybody listening, until you have comments, please give me a mute, and we'll have less background feedback on my end, and that would be great for me. Thank you all for attending, and we're going to get started right off with superintendent updates. Frank, what have you for us this evening?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I was lucky enough to take a few days off last week, so there's some events that went on that I believe Carol will be able to bring you up to speed on. I'll just touch base on a few things. The lengthy pump test that went on at the new location turned out some water quality that was better than originally anticipated. So it was definitely a good call to go from that 2-inch up to the 8-inch. The last results I had, and Tara can correct me on this, we had the average results for the iron was 0.15 milligrams per liter, and the manganese came in at 0.25 milligrams per liter. Both easily removed by the new treatment facility. If those numbers are still on point where they were before I left.
And just from my totally layperson thing about the wells and my feeling, the larger volume well with the amount pumped and the iron numbers is probably more accurate than the 2-inch well with the volume pumped. Is that a safe thing?
Correct.
In our aqua speak, I don't know the underground hydrology of it all, but
you definitely, whenever possible, you can get a better feel of how the final well will go with the larger test well that you install. That was what was explained to us, and it obviously proves true in this case. Not only did we get better water quality, but by going from the 2-inch up to the 8-inch, we actually found that we had a false bottom on the 2. We were able to go deeper, get into a little bit different level of the aquifer, and most likely that improved the water quality, if not the yield. The yield is still yet to be determined once you set your pump and your levels. But definitely the water quality will easily be handled by the treatment facility, and we can design the screens so that we can have maximum flow through them, where we can remove the iron and manganese that's shown in that level of the aquifer. So you're not going to notice, to get out into water lingo, but Kona depression, or it's better all around. Depth, quality, and yield.
as a expert in that area, what would you say would be a negative from what you've seen on this? I hear a lot of positives, and that's encouraging. What, may I ask, is something you don't like, or as all vectors are pointing up right now?
Everything right now, knock on wood, is pointing in the right direction. I don't see any negatives to performing the test with the larger well, or to move forward with putting in our final location.
Excellent. That's very good news.
Yeah, definitely everything everybody had hoped for.
Yeah.
With the way 2020 is going, we'll take it. Exactly. I'll take whatever I can get right about now.
Good to hear.
And,
all right.
And then we'll go on a previous subject. I guess I jinxed ourselves at the last meeting by mentioning it had been quite some time since we received any dirty water calls. We were going on months without a call. We did receive a call the day after the meeting from a Pine Street resident, somebody who's actually tied into the new water main down there. Our technicians responded, flowed a hydrant on either side of the address. Water was crystal clear. Unfortunately, that kind of puts it back onto the water service or the internal plumbing if they are still experiencing a disruption. And we've had good luck with installing spacer bars at homes in the past that have had a settled water service or was in a location that was either higher or lower than the road. And that would allow the resident to get a flow rate going as high as possible through their plumbing.
Basically, the spacer is basically, so everybody else listening, the spacer is basically remove the meter, which somehow it certainly restricts the water flow, and the spacer bar is the same size as the inlet of the water service, and it can raise the water and basically flush the service repair recently in town and had some clogging issues from the piping in the residence. It wasn't from the mains. It was exactly inside the home. So I ran the spigot. I did my own flush kind of, and the setup has recovered. That's I will encourage anybody who has lingering, if they do have dirty water calls and everybody says that they don't want to bother us or whatever, it's not a bother, and we can put it in our schedule during normal working hours, isolate ourselves to the basement for the COVID protocol, and just flush some water through the house. And please don't be concerned. The spacer bar in and of itself replaces the meter, so you will not be billed for this service, water, text, or any part of it. So if you do have an issue, please contact us. We are here to help.
Exactly. I failed to explain it in depth as it's something I'm accustomed to. I forget that many people aren't aware of the lingo.
You're in the movie. A lot of people that see the picture, I will bring the picture to the movie.
Yeah. It's worked in I'd say 99% of the cases.
Yeah.
Other than that, the one that has been the downfall is if there is an old service feeding the house. No amount of flushing, unfortunately, is going to correct that issue. It's the same reason why we replaced the water mains and aging structures in town. They've become deteriorated and problematic. Plastic pipe, same thing. We have a lot of pool plastic in town that was installed because it was cheap. It doesn't last. It's problematic, and unfortunately, it's on the homeowner's side. It's nothing that will be installed on the town side. And again, if people have issues that are still there, the only way we know about it is if you call. I think we've said that at almost every meeting. And
well, I'm going to jump in and say one call in, 3 months?
Yeah.
Winter.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just that isolated residential side.
I mean, even with the ongoing work at the Leonard Street location for the Condyne project, they're still filling and flushing smaller water mains over there that are going to the separate buildings. We see absolutely no impact on the system. We've received a few thankful calls, I guess, for lack of a better term. I don't even know how to say it because we don't get them.
Appreciation.
There you go.
A little bit of a water department appreciation.
Yeah, some residents.
Which we're open to. We have no problem with that.
I would rather take those. It is uncommon.
Thank you.
Yeah. People have mentioned that they typically would replace their filter on a regular basis, and they've gone down because it was their scheduled time to replace it, and they were pleasantly surprised that it was in not need of being replaced. It looked like it was done, and that's pretty impressive. Especially with only really having one aggressive flushing program. It was modified. Once we get into the fall, water and weather dependent, we're going to go at it again. We won't be as aggressive. I don't believe we need to be. It'll be more of a routine maintenance issue. We'll be able to continue moving the water a little further out in the system, maybe be a little more aggressive with mains that we typically haven't been in the past, with providing we have staff available to all be out at different hours of the night with COVID restrictions and everything, but we'll handle it accordingly and we'll go from here.
Well, I gotta say, the lingering issue areas, if there are any, and obviously direct the energy and the water to that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm not saying anything other than what you already know, just telling everybody at home. We have a lot of new mains.
Right. We definitely have quite a few new mains in town. The goal of that last flushing period was to obviously just remove the existing water from the system. Any benefit of stirring things up and flushing it out obviously was there, but we wanted to get the changeover, see how it was going to react with the system. Anytime you change your treatment process, you can have positive and negative effects to your existing system. And again, knock on wood, everything's been positive so far. And like I said, the one call that we had there from the last meeting, or after the last meeting, lucky to say it wasn't in the distribution system, where typically in the past it would be, and we'd be out there for a number of hours flushing water ways to remove it.
Right.
So now there will be a few hiccups here and there as sure as progress goes on and construction begins up on East Main Street, and we'll deal with it and we'll go from there.
Very good.
One other thing, we'll jump completely to something totally different. I wanted to get your opinion before it goes before you The company that installed the generator at the water treatment plant is a company that actually services and works on multiple different makes and models of generator and power source, which we found in the past has been something very difficult to come by. Usually they're brand specific.
Right.
And instead of having multiple different service contracts, because we have unfortunately multiple different motors, generators, transfer switches, I've reached out to them and asked for a quote. They're still working on it. It would be for all of our water department generators to have under one blanket policy that would be obviously to arrive and maintain. There'd be a yearly fee, and then obviously you still pay a call-up fee, but you're put to the top of the list. Right. Years past, myself and our current primary operator would do most of the maintenance on these generators, and now going on a year and a half, we've only been able to do basic maintenance because of other responsibilities. And I really think it's time to bring in somebody that is there, that is ready at a drop of a call. Has the technology that'll handle more of the modern generators, where we're starting to go more of that way with computers. And
They do all the sewer ones as well?
we don't have them set up for sewer. That's something, because of two separate enterprise accounts, I would get different quotes for the sewer aspect of it if they come in with a reasonable price. Definitely something I had already spoken to him about, and we're in the process of rounding up all the nameplate information from the sewer generators, because again, each one's a little different.
Well, every stage is different. Just kind of thing, and I have to think if they're out there doing to pull one of my favorite lines, the mobilization factor, if they can come and do, I'm just throwing a shot at the wall, 7 generators in one day, it's got to be a better deal. And if you look at your own comparison with the multiple people you have separately and look at their proposal for the entire water group, we'll take a look at that number and see what it is. So, and yeah, so many of these things are proprietary, and the engines are different, and they only service their thing, and it's frustrating. But this company sounds like they're kind of forward thinking, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, so we'll see what their numbers come back at once they finalize their estimate, and we'll go from there. Obviously, if it's over the special amount, it'll have to go up for 3 quotes anyway, and then we can see just who else is available. We'll go from there.
Right. Well, it's got to be a similar bid, right? So they have to be the versatile, all-encompassing, all service, all model. That's
what I had for you. I know Tara's probably got some more information about that pump test and some other things that we definitely need to discuss treatment facility-wise and well 5, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Very good. Let's move to Western and Sampson, which sounds like the water sides first.
All right, great. Thank you. Thanks, Frank. So,
Oh, Peter.
Hey, how you been?
Glad to hear your voice, baby.
Yeah, we'll see you guys. Thank you.
so the treatment plant, we'll just start off with that first. So we did meet on site this past Friday, waiting for a schedule update from the electrical file sub-bidders. They indicated a game plan. We wanted to make sure everybody's comfortable with it, talk about exactly how they're going to take the well 5 station offline. Speaking with Derek, the primary operator, 1 day max. We really just based on the time of the year right now. Obviously, we don't want to be taking that offline for too long. So what we've come up with as a solution, which we're in recommendation of this as well, is to talk to National Grid. They're going to have to turn the power off. They would have to be doing that anyway. That would be charged under the contract as is anyway. There's a line item for utility, gas, and electric. So for the electric, we're looking to probably just charge an additional line fee to make sure they're on site. We have a line crew for emergency purposes to pay for that. That's about $1,800. I'm waiting for an official quote. I can keep you posted on that. The thought process would be we would have the electrical file sub-bidder complete all the work as much as possible prior to taking that station offline. Have a line crew scheduled for the same day that we'd have the electrical inspector scheduled for, say, the afternoon. They would shut off the line crew would shut off the power to the well. the electrical file submitter would basically hook up all the equipment that day, and assuming there's no issues, by the end of the day, they'd be ready to turn it back on as soon as the green light is given by the electrical department. So the only concern with that is that, you know, we talked about it. Do we want to run the generator for several days? National Grid, if you're not under emergency situations, you're kind of at their whim to come back out.
Right.
We'd be concerned if there was an incident and there was you know, we're kind of getting towards now hurricane season. If they're out there,
and all kinds of Murphy shows up.
so we'd have a dedicated date and schedule. They're still working on a couple things on their end and getting some deliveries and parts, making sure it's all here. And then I want them to contact the electrical department and make sure, depending on COVID, whatever the new hours are, so that everything's kind of scheduled and in writing to us beforehand, so you can have this all.
And you guys have done a full plant run-up with, or full well run-up with the generator that's out there, so it's not going to be a hiccup on, oh, geez, we needed this transfer switch.
Yeah, so the generator was tested. It's not been run for, you know, we've only had it online and hooked up for a couple weeks now, but the thought would be that if we did need an extra day with the National Grid crew, we could actually temporarily hook up that generator at the end of the day. Say if they need to leave for, you know, their 8-hour shift, we could hook that up temporarily for the day. We just don't want to run the propane tanks for 5 to 7 days or something while this could possibly be offline and you're going to pay more money to pay for propane.
Right. In the interim, is it worth running the generator on that well for half a day just for kicks to make sure we give a full load test even with the well the way it is?
I haven't gotten the paperwork for the legend that has been done.
Okay.
I was, unfortunately, we weren't notified that they had come out. We thought they were coming to fix the fire pull box and the septic generator. So
They showed up and they're going to work. They're going to do what they feel like. They have their coffee, scratch their head, and headed towards the generator. That's cool.
we're hoping to get that documentation as well, but we can certainly, I mean, if
they have the docs, that's cool. If they don't, just take a little bit of prevention and run it. And I have not a lot of faith in the new stuff we receive these days. There's not a lot of QC going on. Maybe it's because of my age. Maybe it's because I've been set up and knocked down a couple too many times. But the stuff wrapped up, from the box, it's not ready to go. So a half a day, I think, would give it a little shakedown. And if they've done it, cool. If they haven't, at your convenience or discretion, please feel free to line that thing out and run it. Sure. Those engines are meant to run it.
Yeah, and that's our goal. Is that would be the only possible concern is if some of the equipment they bought for some reason was faulted when we finally get power.
Right.
You know, we have some contingencies in place for an option. I prefer to have that emergency generator still standing as an emergency backup if there was an issue. We have that. So
good.
There's a couple items. As I said, they still need to get us a little bit of some materials and equipment specs just to confirm that what we had asked for is what they're actually going to be supplying. And then a full written up schedule is all we want. And confirmation that they have filed to National Grid, they have a purchase order in hand, as well as the actual confirmation that the electrical inspector will be out at that time. So there's some things in the report right now, but taking into consideration the season, there's no room for error on that end. So we need them to be ready and on board. So we met directly with the file submitter on site, and president of the company was out there too and agreed on it. So we're getting closer, and I just wanted to run that by everybody now that time back from vacation and you guys are here for the meeting. So we do have $28,000 left in that line item budget for that utility allowance for the electric company. And like I said, it could be, we're assuming roughly 1,800, but it could be up to, double that if we had needed it for 2 days.
Are there other lingering punch list items for the electrical subcontractor in that area or anywhere in the plant? Really?
That's predominantly it. They did come out, so when they were on site on Friday, they fixed the fire alarm pull box. We had an issue with one of the alarms closest to the door. It had gone out several weeks before that when we had our site meeting, actually. And so that was fixed, and they did do the final wiring of the electric gate.
The gates are on remote?
The gate is
Oh,
powered. No. Unfortunately,
power. All right.
the good news is that while the wires were in the conduit leading up to the gate, there was some confusion with the subcontractors on whose responsibility it is to hook up the actual 1 foot or so connection. It was coiled up in the conduit. So the gate contractor said, not us. Electrical contractor said, fine, we're an electrician, we can go do that. And that's hooked up, and now we're just waiting for that the electrical gate contractor to do their startup and testing on that, on the motor for that. So as far as, I'm not an alpha, which is like Frank did, that we're getting closer, but as I explained in emails before, we have been hearing concerns with some of the contractors having issues with their staff being on COVID furlough or not coming into work and whatnot. So unfortunately, that's one of the vertical construction folks have been impacted a little bit more than some of the pipeline who can do work outside. So we're getting there. We have received paperwork from the DC's office, the general contractor's office. So that's starting to move again too. There's some confusion on where things were, and we scoured our offices and confirmed absolutely nothing has been received. So if you have a slip of paper that's from the mail company that says you shipped it, let us know. But it doesn't seem to be shipped. So they're moving forward with that, and overall, I think we're starting to get there. We talked about a few other things on site when I was there on Friday with the two personnel from the DC as well as the 3 or 4 different folks from the electrical company. So there's nothing really left on their end as far as the electrical work. That's pretty much other than the change order work that we've been kind of waiting on. So that's in pretty good shape. There's a decent amount of paperwork, but other than that, most of the punch list items have been taken care of. There's the recycle tank, which is one of the other items I wanted to discuss. We had proposed to line the tank with a different color. There's mostly used gray is an epoxy liner, color gray. They do have a red in the can, unfortunately, and I did confirm with the epoxy direct supplier that it is about a 3-week lead time. The question is whether or not, and it's more for kind of, I guess, everybody in this room to make a decision. Do we want to wait for 3 weeks to have the first coat be red so that you can kind of see the second coat start to wear and tear over the next 10 years? Or if we just go with the gray and gray, they're just coating the base of the tank as well as up about 1 foot on the sides, and then each individual seam gets the coat all the way up to the top of the tank. So it's not a full tank, epoxy coating, but like as I had said in my emails, the manufacturer says 7 to 10 years. We all know from coating of tanks it starts to wear, but some of it still holds the layer, so you probably get 10 plus years out of it. It's a small amount, so I don't know if we want to wait for 3 weeks, and I don't know if that's more of an operator decision on do we want to see if this works and make sure it works then too, and then if it doesn't work, then whether we got red or gray, it doesn't really matter, I guess. So, but we can kind of take that next step so that we can move forward with the 2-coat epoxy system, which is also fully potable and SF61 approved for anybody else that knows anything about water chemistry.
Very good.
Certified.
Well, in theory, the 2-color system is pretty good because I know from just my residential painting, if you're covering a white wall with white paint, you sit down for lunch and you go back and it's tough to, unless you complete a whole wall, it's tough to come up with where you stop. So if you have no objections, Frank, maybe we do the 2-color. Is it crazy? Is it a lot of money? Or is it just time?
It's just time. It's no additional cost. It's just whether, we've kind of been waiting for 3 or 4 months at this point anyway, so
Right.
I didn't want to make the call myself.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not happy with the whole put a Band-Aid on a heart attack solution they have. This is, I don't even want to guess. How much is the tank? The tank installation is $100,000, $150,000?
I'd have to go back through, depending on their bids and how they broke it up. It's probably a little bit different, but that's probably a reasonable estimate. Yeah,
right?
it's a large piece of equipment, yeah.
It's very difficult to remove and replace. So I guess I can't say we're stuck with it, but I'm going to say Methuen is stuck with it at this point. And until we as a commission are happy, their Band-Aids and bubble gum are going to be reinforced with insurance policies and money. So however they want to proceed is cool, but I think I would like to recommend the 2-color approach, because if it does work and the water wears off some of certain areas, so you could do an overlay or whatever you want in 10 years.
Right, you see this.
How does the fund that was doing contribute to this as they exit happily?
Right.
Because all they're trying to do is get out of our town, and I know they've been good on a lot of stuff, but this is big, and it hasn't been properly corrected as of yet, and that's bad. And underground concrete structures never get better. Just like the the jiggle and the shock comes over on your car and it stops making noise, that just means it fell off. It didn't like repair itself. So I don't know, what they can do to make us more confident about their performance on that tank, but I need to feel a little more, sure that the tank is gonna perform as designed rather than, oh, we got it hold water and it's good to the end of the driveway kind of thing. So, however we want to communicate that to them, I'll be happy to meet on site with them and have a little warm and fuzzy like we did last time. It's always good. Get everybody going.
I think that's a perfect idea. I mean, as far as maintenance goes, it's very difficult, even based on manufacturer's spec, to know when you're coming up on that, whether it's on track, whether it's, a little early.
Right.
So having the two different colors, obviously, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's unfortunate it's not in stock, but I think in the long run it'll be a better product for you, and you would be inspecting these tanks, every 3 to 5 years or so, but and they would do a mill thickness usually on the test, but its visual is a much better option. So, and the 3 weeks were, I think we're still in that window where we're obviously low groundwater table. I don't see any issues with that. And if we got into late September, that might be another story, but I think, we've waited a little long, so another 3 weeks doesn't seem like a too big of an issue if you guys are all comfortable with that. So.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. All right. So then we'll just relay that to the operators. All right. And then as far as, we probably should just discuss and confirm, are you okay with the emergency line crew for National Grid to have them have that?
Yeah,
order
no, you need that, absolutely.
Right.
They're critical.
It's the only way you hold the ticket.
No,
It's a golden ticket.
It's really the only guarantee that they're going to be coming out right, or they're there
Right,
physically
no.
versus.
We do it on the residential side from time to time with, panel swap out, so they need their thing, and thank goodness we have a generator backup if for some reason they do get called out or something. That, we need them, and it doesn't hurt because their crews are skilled in the lines and the transformers, and so they'll be down there and they will have no other reason than to look up and say, oh, hey, I'd like to put this on the schedule in ordinary maintenance down the road. So, yeah, their eyes are very valuable and their hands are.
Yeah, and they'll have this full access road. They can. I don't know when the last time is that they've been down there, but you have some critical infrastructure
Right.
too. That you have emergency power, but if there is something that can get on the list, they can do it and have all day to wander up and down the site. So.
That's it. Bring them
Okay.
out.
All right, great, excellent. So as far as the treatment plant goes, those are the 2 main items that we have on our list. I can switch over unless there's some questions about that. We can switch to the next project. So as Frank had mentioned, we were doing the 5-day pumping test over at well 6. We originally had a 2-inch test well installed. We had noticed that the high iron and manganese content was way higher than anticipated, considering all the other test wells out in the area had produced much lower, very similar to the existing wells. So it was suggested that, just to confirm, because the yield was such a great high flow rate yield from that well, theoretically that the 8-inch well, if you did a 5-day pumping test, had a larger screen on it, and actually were able to modify the existing well sources with their flow rates, we could actually have a much better consistent value, and we did have the continuous monitoring. The treatment plant is able to test for iron and manganese, so we were able to do actual tests there too, and came up with much better water quality results for iron and manganese, very similar to what we had anticipated that we would see, because it's only about 30 feet away from well 6, maybe a little bit further than that, but so you would anticipate seeing very similar water quality, and we did, which is great news. And the yield also was something that we had confirmed a little bit better with a larger 8-inch well. So instead of going with the other well that had a little bit less yield and better water quality, iron and manganese levels, that was a little further away, this does prove to be the best location, and we will be moving forward. Our staff for the HydroGeo group is reviewing all the results, putting together a summary report, and then our next step would be to apply to Mass DEP for a replacement well for that location. Well 5, we did get the confirmation from DEP that they've approved that replacement well. So now that we confirm that our location for both 5 and 6 are set, we are going to move forward with a notice of intent to the Conservation Commission about constructing those 2 wells. And that'll just basically include drilling of the well, very similar to the 8-inch well, which was temporary. So we contacted the conservation agent to discuss that work, and it was approved. It was not a requirement. Permanent work obviously is. So those 2 new wells will be permanent and will need to be permanent through conservation. And there will be a pumping test for those for full flow with Mass DP as well. That's the next step. So all good news for basically what we conducted last week. So we had some decent rain. The system, we had modified the treatment process, had 3 crew. It was 24/7 operation during that period of time. Saw some very good consistent water quality as well as the treatment plant as well during that too. So everything was all positive, to be honest with you. So we were confident that it would turn out well, but it actually did, and during the peak demand season too. So we're moving forward to the next steps of that, and hopefully by the next meeting I'll have some more updates on where we are with the permitting process. Any questions on the well replacement project?
Oh, all sounds good, Karen.
All right, great. So Home Street, we actually wrapped up with that project and received the final pay estimate, as I mentioned in the last meeting. We were hoping for it by this meeting. Frank's got copies of that final pay estimate. It closes out the project roughly about $45,000. It's included the final permanent trench pavement that was installed on East Main Street and Home Street. So that job is 100% closed out. Record drawings have already been provided, and both under budget on engineering and on construction. We had a great contractor. They had done the reservoir street job in the area. Worked really well with them, set up that pipe that was in the ground, the original water main. So worked out really well, and successful project. So that pay estimate is in front of you for review, and if you have any comments, let me know. And then we have another pay estimate for the Pine Street water main replacement project. That job was actually just for police details. We had billed out for the temporary trench and some of the pipeline installation under last month. We're just waiting for the final invoices from the police department. So it's about $20,000 for work completed through the end of June. That project is on hiatus, as we previously mentioned at a few other meetings, until the fall. And again, we've seen some pretty good water quality on that main, and as Frank said, that contractor doesn't use Excel well.
Well, you know what? They can put pipe in the ground. We'll deal with the Excel. If I'm saying pipe.
Oh no. I got a question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. Are we gonna lose power?
I don't know if we're going to lose power. Did you lose power?
No.
Good. The lights are on Mansfield Ave.
Yeah.
I like it. I'll drive home that way, Peter. I don't want those traffic controls to be out. I won't know which way to go.
Yep. Alright, so I can give you guys an update on the sewer. Continuing to make good progress since the last meeting. They're continuing with the 2 mainline crews. So we talked last meeting, so there's the one crew that skipped ahead from where the leg was, and they started at the Honeydew and were working their way up to the high school. As of last meeting, they had actually got to the point where they were going to be parallel with where the sewer service from the high school and the Yale school are currently in the old abandoned water main.
Right.
They were back and forth about some ideas to be able to proceed, maybe doing a temporary force main what they ended up doing is they continued working.
That is a bit of a physical trick, isn't it?
Yeah. So one thing we did is we moved in addition to the abandoned water main, there's an abandoned gas main out there.
Sure.
Both in that same area. So they were Golden Moor, where the abandoned gas main was, basically right down the curb line. So long story short, they made the decision to continue. We talked about it, to continue until that abandoned water main with the sewer came far enough into the trench where it was an issue, and it never did. So they got all the way, so my understanding is tomorrow, they started digging today for it, and tomorrow they're going to be setting the last manhole on the 12-inch sewer up to the top of the hill. So they were able to go all the way
Yep. Excellent.
without having to take that sewer out. And we also talked about the fact that we were able to push the envelope a little working near it because no one's actually using that line right now, or not much is in that line. So if they were,
Not much is in that line.
if they
That-
were,
now that is some engineering gambling right there.
if they
Not
were,
much is in that line. All right.
if they
That's what we're gonna do.
If they weren't to damage it, they would have done the time. But anyway, it didn't. So that is still in service for now
Yep.
until such time as we're
Right.
tied in. So everything from the Honeydew up to the top of the hill, it should be in place as of
Are they
tomorrow.
ties?
So they're leaving the Ys
Yep.
as they go. They still need to come back and do all the
Check all those laterals, yeah. All right.
both the short side and the long side. So they've still got plenty
Mhm.
of work to do out there in terms of that.
But no ledge, no issues, no.
They had
no
groundwater.
All right.
Groundwater, which was in the barns.
Yeah.
They were
And it's
able to
groundwater's low right now, so
Yep.
as low as it goes.
Yep.
So
Yep. So
that's encouraging.
it was nothing other than they had to have, the pumps in the trench.
Yeah, I see some water relief wells from time to time going down the side of the vertical pipe coming out of the ground. Is that the end of a lateral, or is that like a dewatering case?
No, they leave them in as they go.
Yeah.
For dewater, deep sumps,
Yep,
to where they can pull the water out
kind of
as
nice.
they move.
All right.
Yep. So that crew will be wrapped up, probably tomorrow with the main line. The other crew has been working their way back from the housing authority doing the 8-inch sewer up, so they're past Freeman Street. My understanding is early next week they'll probably be to the end of their run. So we're gonna have a terminal manhole on the 8-inch that flows back down to the housing authority. We'll have the terminal manhole on the 12-inch that flows back to Wheaton, and then they'll just have to do the force main, continue the force main in between.
Excellent.
So all that main line up there will be done by early next week, I think. By the end of the week.
Freeman Street, scheduled to get a T or a stub.
So yeah, they have to run a connection
out of the
across.
state road while
Yep.
we're there.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna run across and put a manhole in Freeman Street for a future connection.
So T to a manhole,
Yep.
and it stops at the manhole.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So there's a manhole in the intersection in 123, and they're gonna run another 8-inch across the road to another manhole
Yeah.
in Freeman Street. And the build-out plan over there is, there's ultimately gonna be a pump station on one of those side streets on Freeman that collects all the flow from
Close to the reservoir.
that side, yeah, the other side of the reservoir.
Very good.
It isn't sewered.
That's a good
We'll
job.
run that way in a future phase.
All right.
So that main line will be done next week. The crew, so one of the crew that was in the ledge area before is scheduled to head back there.
There were some happy people. I stumbled by from time to time at the end of the day, and those guys are just happy to be putting multiple pipes in. They were like,
Finally making progress.
they were like, oh my God,
I mean,
it's so horrible to sit in the same 50 feet for all week.
What we always suspected ended up being the case is that, they were in the worst area of the job trying to get through it, and there was a lot of frustration and a little bit of panic over it. They've been pre-drilling for the ledge, so to circle back, so we have the permit from Mass DOT, talked about that last week. We also have the fire department's permit to do the blasting. So the sub that's gonna do the drilling, A1 drilling and blasting, has been pre-drilling. According to the contractor, it's my understanding that they actually came out of the ledge sooner than they thought they would. We'll see. Either way, They have the permission to blast it now. They have the permit to blast it. They've pre-drilled. My
Wouldn't
understanding
it
is
just be phenomenal if we don't need to use all that extra money? That was just one item. That would be
a
phenomenal.
lot of people. So,
Rather have it not needed than
Yeah.
need it not have it.
I mean, there's still
So
a
what-
bunch of ledge out there.
No, right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
So they're gonna.
No, it's not gonna go away. So
Yep.
how much do they shoot? Have they gotten to the point where they're scheduling or planning to do 20 feet at a time, 40, or how many lineal feet? I saw a bunch of patterns after the painting got.
So they've gone from where we stopped, and they've just taken, so we skipped ahead to station 20. They ended at station like 600, where they were hammering away. So there's a 1,400, 1,500 foot stretch they still need to get done.
Sure.
And they just came out and started doing their blast patterns moving forward. So they're ready to go. I don't have specifics on if they're done with the pre-drilling. The indication was.
So they shot.
So they're ready. So on Monday, my understanding is the crew that's finishing up that manhole near the high school and finishing up that 12-inch section. That's the crew.
Closest one to it is going to be
That's the
that.
crew that was hammering away. So they're going to come back, and as of Monday, they're going to go back to where they left off, expose the ledge,
Blow
blow out the
holes and
holes, and
load.
start blasting
All right.
and going. And the understanding is that it just started, the ledge started to recede a little bit as they went further up the road. So it doesn't appear as though it was the worst case scenario that we were preparing for.
Yeah.
And I'm not making any promises right now.
No,
until they
the
get
driller
prepared.
knows. The
Yeah.
driller flat out knows what it is. But, and we have that rider with, the contractor that anything less than 3 feet will be dealt with at, like, it's the same now, it's no point. All right. Quit worrying.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we had the change order to agree on a higher price for the rock that they hammered.
Yeah.
While they were waiting for the permit.
That was
They were
all
done hammering, and that was all contingent.
blast rock.
That went away once they got their blast.
All right.
Any rock they pull out, whether they blast it or hammer it,
Same rate.
is at the contract.
Good.
So that we're done with that.
That's fantastic.
So that's where we're headed, and they're finally making progress. So everybody feels good about it. So we'll see. As of next week, they should be down to the only mainline sewer left will be that 1,400 foot stretch. It's going to go slow.
Right.
They're not all of a sudden going to put
And they won't
50, 80 feet a day.
Right, they won't do 2 crews, they won't stop.
So the other crew will start doing the left. So they're
Okay,
going to. So now they've done all that main line
Right.
that they've done up
Hook it up.
front.
all right.
They still need to make all the connections across the line.
So then-
No, I don't think there was just one main line to finish up that line. So
And, because we're out there taking time and doing as-built and whatnot, I know it's probably not happening lately, but we're taking a big picture approach. Anything that's in here, you're logging as far as water mains or whatever you drainage or
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff gets,
Yeah, we took that up.
in the past, when I just came on the board, it was a hodgepodge of, I wasn't here then, or nobody knows what's in that road, and now we have an opportunity, even if something crosses it, I mean, it's not a,
Well, no, it's
Anything
around
else?
the sewer.
yeah.
So your sewer, we'll know what's there.
All right, but anything foreign or whatever you find, it's obvious that you guys will not digest.
Yeah.
I'm politely requesting to make sure that everything's time or critical.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Location, I guess I should.
So that's,
Is there, not to jump on, is there a specific window of time for the blasting? Permit? I have yet to open the shaft.
yeah, so they did, and the contractor has requested a little, once again, we just requested a little bit of leniency. So the permit allows 10 to 2 to do the blasting. If they could get a window a little wider, they could do 2 shots a day. In the 10 to 2 window, they're only going to get 1 shot a day. So, prior to blasting. So the blasting permit
I
is
saw that.
limited to 10 to 2.
Yeah, no,
That's clearly about the traffic again, because when you blast, you know, there's a 5-minute period,
No, I know.
and the whole road is just, everybody within 200 feet is off to stop. So the contractor did request a little more, length on the time that they could blast, in the theory that if they have a little more time, they could get 2 shots, you know, a day.
Right.
You know, at this pace, if they can't do it till 10 o'clock, then
You're not gonna get to them.
it's going to slow down. You know, it would obviously be faster if they had the ability to blast a little earlier, and do it a little later today. You know, if they could do one at, you know, 8:30 in the morning as opposed to having to wait until 10,
Right.
they could get another one
I'm
at
hoping that if
2:30.
things go well, and then they ask with a track right here along this site, maybe we could politely request an extra hour, but I know myself, I don't want to see something go wrong, and they have the 5 o'clock traffic show up, that would be bad.
So,
And I would implore you to caution them as early and often, little, I'd rather have Rocky hammering a little bit,
yeah.
shredding some rock and utilities from the road. I know they know this.
Yeah.
They've done their survey work or their testing process, foundation surveys, and all that stuff is done.
Yeah, the pre-blast, as far as I know, is done.
Oh,
Yeah, the fire department requires that, so.
lot of work. Thank you for that, Steve. That was a lot of shoveling on your end that I know was
Yeah.
really the contractor responsibility, but
We're getting there now. So there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel.
it feels a lot better than it
time
did.
there wasn't.
No, it feels a lot better than it did a month ago.
Yeah.
You were the,
Yeah.
you were the recipient of a lot of bad juju. That's never fun.
So it's turning back into a construction project.
Now we're dealing with the regular issues of construction. There will still be bumps along the way. And we are still, there's still some old change orders that still need to be dealt with. And a couple of new things. I will say, you know, one thing, in order to put the pipe in from the Housing Authority pump station back, that was also supposed to be in the same trench as the sewer, so we would have had to rip the sewer. We did it like coming to the other side of the road, so we're going to have the drainage, right?
And curbing, I think there was some
So
curbing.
curving down the other side.
Okay.
So right now, the work that they finished on Freeman, they ended up having to replace, I think it was maybe 80 feet of drain. And it's going to be like $10,000
Right.
to change
New
it,
pipe.
a brand new
All right.
drainage pipe.
All right.
That we told them, yeah, if you encounter it and you have to remove it and replace it, we'll work with you
Right.
on that. And it was the trade-off to get that work done now, basically, and not wait until all the other work is
And
done.
this is the other side. This isn't the East Main that the state is working on. They're not coming this far. So us replacing drainage is actually a benefit to our drainage system.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
So, and there'll be more, so when they get into this last section, the location of the sewer, we were originally going to come down that white fog line, and it ended up being just too tight between the drain and the telephone poles. We're going to be supporting the poles
Right.
and probably supporting the
Right.
drain, so we're going, for a long stretch, we're right where the drain is pretty much.
Yep.
Drain's only like 2 or 3 feet deep.
Yep.
So they're just going to have to pop it out, put the sewer in, and then reset the drain.
No, that's fine. You
So
don't
we'll
want
track there.
telephone poles and wires away.
Yeah.
All in building drainage.
Unfortunately, most of that drain is inferior and does not work properly anyway.
Right.
So anything that we're doing is only going to improve the drainage in that area.
It's a hodgepodge of whatever they have. I saw that stuff, the other stuff on 140, the mess that they were all worried about getting an extra for. It's like, put it together. What was it, 8 inches or a foot under the pavement?
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's horrible.
But I guess that's because they hit ledge.
Right. They didn't go any deeper.
It was on the rock.
Oh, yeah.
They threw the towel in, they put the pipe in.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
blast the rock that
Right.
they're sitting on.
Right.
So even if we're not right under them,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna lose that.
Right. We have an
We're
opportunity.
not gonna be able to support them.
Right. And we have an opportunity to improve that system and make it up to date as well, so we don't, we're gonna do this whole, do the half the road overlay.
Yep.
So you don't want the drainage faulty and have to go back in for some reason, so. I like it, just a little bit of pain, but it does a long-term improvement to the infrastructure out there. That's really important.
I got your email on the police. We can catch up with that on that after the meeting real quick.
And what is, do you know the protocol for the fire? Have they been out, the fire department details have been out there for drilling or not drilling this
They, to my knowledge, they've been out to check on it, but I think it's just.
Not a detail.
I don't think it's considered a detail yet.
So we're doing a little,
Starting Monday, they'll be out there, probably from, as, you know, all the way through.
when the loads show up.
Yeah.
If they wanna,
Once
all right.
They're
Just slowly.
exposing and loading the
All right.
holes, obviously right through the plant.
Mhm.
Once they shoot it, I think that's it.
Good.
Anything else.
It'll be
So
very,
we'll see how Monday, you know, goes. There'll be some, bits, stops and starts, I'm sure, as they get going into it. But he seems, definitely, blasting company definitely does plenty of it. They always do.
okay.
You could just keep me updated.
So as of right now, Monday, they'll be out there. Do we know, like, when they went out and just did the pre-drilling? I'm assuming that was significantly less disruptive. Did we get any?
Nothing. Nothing. There was some knocks on the doors, checking houses. They do that.
They did that, yeah.
Survey work, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep, they
Yeah,
look at the
pre-blast
foundation,
survey,
see how it
yeah.
is.
Is
Pre-blast.
that what it is?
Yeah. Because people come out of the woodwork and say, I had a foundation crack, but yeah, I got this on your survey. Well, number 3 was cracked anyway, right here.
Yep.
I think when they start on Monday out there, within a couple of weeks, they should have a decent amount of distance from where they left off.
That'd be great.
Decent progress, yeah. It's not going to be the progress they're making up in the areas they're in.
No, but
It's still going to be
better than
a couple
before.
pipe a day, hopefully,
Right.
as opposed to
Yeah.
one pipe every other day.
It's easier. It's not the wrestling match that it is without the shot.
Yep. And they'll still be hammering. You know,
Yeah.
they'll do the shot, they'll pull what they can out, and then they'll hammer to finish it out. So hammer out whatever they need to get out of it, but it should hammer much easier. There should be fractures and through.
Yeah, there was some funky grades that were in there where that were allowed to be a zone for hammering, a zone for blasting. That was in the Mass DEP permit, right?
Yep.
That was
Yep.
very strange that wouldn't go. You know, if you're at the top and you hit some lead, why wouldn't you go there? But you're required to.
They don't want to come out into a gas main.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just plain and simple.
Stay away from that elevation.
Yeah, the horizontal impact of the blast is not controllable at rate.
Right.
It'll heave the road right up in a mound. I don't know if you've ever seen a road shot without
Not a road shot.
without mass in the woods. It rises 14 feet.
Right.
It's insane. So they don't want that on 123.
No.
That'll impact the traffic a little bit.
So that's the West Main sewer. You haven't heard on Cobb Street, or
I have.
you never heard back from council, right?
I'll reach out to them tomorrow.
Yeah,
See if,
they had that. It's in your court if you want to get going on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll reach out to them tomorrow, see if there was any hang up on it. If not, maybe they'll go back to that long form, the original one. That was the original one. That was an approved one.
Yep.
And if they feel more comfortable with that, we'll take it from there.
All right. So that's what I got. Unless you have any questions on that?
I think that's
I don't think so.
more good news. Progress is a good thing. Anybody else, little tidbits or comments, criticisms? The next meeting, this is
Next month, yeah.
this is the 28th, so it's going to be August. What's the second Tuesday in August, ladies and gentlemen?
11?
Let's try now. Councilor Lynn, and now Mr. Bishop, if you would. Your favorite motion? I'll second that. We're out.
This session is no longer being recorded. Goodbye.